you might see floating around the table one of these. This is the vision. Come on in and have a seat. Yeah, come on in. It's cool. As long as you just don't smear it all over a book. Alright. So my little radio is having some difficulty. But why don't you pass this one down around? Alright. Okay. I'll give you guys one too. Okay. So what I'm passing around is what I call my vision board. And so in doing this whole project, I wanted to incorporate a ton of different media. Not just words on the page. I mean, books are beautiful things and I love them. But let's face it, everyone, society-wise, has kind of been gearing toward more, stimulus with everything. We have a lot of ADD going on with young people, and so I figured, what could I do to re-engage the youth, to re-engage readers in general? I love libraries myself, but people aren't always prone to go there. So, as a performer, I get on stage every week, almost. And when I don't get on stage in a week, I'm upset. Honestly, I'm like, what happened this week? Why didn't I get up in front of people and do something creative or exciting? Because that's what drives me, that's what makes me happy and excited and just filled with, I feel like I'm giving back something, all right? So on this vision, you see that the book is the center. And then if you go to the left, you have the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is a beautiful thing. It keeps growing every month. I put out bonus music. Sometimes I incorporate poetry. I now added some poetic tracks. I added there's instrumentals. There's scenes with actors. So there's a whole, and so I started to engage local performers and say, hey, would you like to be part of this project? Would you like to help me grow this, right? And so many people that actually will be performing later here have done voices on the soundtrack. Things to bring the characters to life, so you have voices to go along with the characters. So it's just more exciting. And then I wanted to add photography as well. So in the center of the table here are blown up versions of photography that's in the book, but these are the color versions you have in black and white in the book itself. So that's music, it's vocal acting, it's photography. I do live events like what we're doing right now. I built this gentleman right here, this 6.5, 7 foot tall version of the Hooded Killer. If you read the book, you'll learn all about him and all his destructive stuff. And that's just another visual element. So I've got photography, I've got him. And then if you look here in the lower right of the vision board, there's the newsletter. Every month I put out a newsletter. And I have some examples of that here today too, the actual newsletter. I've done 3 of them so far, and with them you get links to free music, you get bonus photography that's not in the book, and then you get invitations to these kind of events that I'm doing. Come on in, have a seat, please. So with this book, I wanted so much to give so much more, but the biggest thing, the concept art and the newsletter, they're huge. The trailer that I put on YouTube, I'm going to be doing a music video shortly too to one of the tracks in the soundtrack. But the biggest thing I want to say by far is really just, it's hard to say, but there's just so much that I've put in. There it is. The biggest thing was actually the event where I threw a party for the first 125 people who bought the book. I catered it. There was about 8 to 10 performers that performed live. So people who bought into the culture, bought into everything, got free food. They got to see free entertainment, and they saw me perform live from the soundtrack. And I'm going to be doing that at milestones. Each time I hit a certain point in sales that I can afford to give back to the readers, I'm going to do that. My next goal is going to be 300 books. And I'm 2/3 of the way there. So it's not going to be too far off. I would say maybe October, right around Halloweenish, is where I'm hoping to really be able to do that party. I've got some really cool, exciting things I'm going to be releasing with the book around Halloween time as well, because it's really a murder mystery, so that's the perfect time of year to really promote. And so my goal is maybe even if we get to like 250 or something like that, I'm going to try and do a nice big party or something where I have people come out. It'll be a costume party. And then I'll be reading from the book. I'll be dressed up in costume, which I do like to do, dress up in costume, and really give people a sample of what it's like, to be the hooded killer. Okay.
It's great. It's very environmental. It's like environmental theater.
And so when you go to read the book, it's just that much more. I've had people write me. I've got a few feedbacks on Amazon. Actually, about close to 10 feedbacks now, which is a lot for just 3 months. And so people have written things like they can finish this book in just a few hours. It's so suspenseful. One lady was like, I would have finished it in a few hours, but I'm a mom, so it took me 2 days. But still, that's very quick to get through about 300 pages, 100,000 words. It's not a boring read at all. It's I designed it, 6 years of writing, so that every chapter leads you to something more exciting that you want to just keep reading. You can't put it down. You may not sleep until you get through a good chunk of it. You know, if even that. But I digress.
It's like comparing 3D to 4D. You know,
I'm trying to make this as multi-dimensional, as multimedia as possible, short of being a movie itself.
Yes.
I call it a readable movie because I still have the reading element, which is what I want. I mean, I don't want to stop the reading element. I just want to add to it.
Right.
You know, people are like, why didn't you make an audiobook? Well, because audiobook does all the work for you.
Right.
I mean, and maybe at some point I will release an audiobook for people who can't really read anymore, they can't see, maybe that kind of thing. But I really want people to still read and have the music and just be like, oh my gosh, I have to keep reading. I want to build the suspense, build the whole emotional reaction, but still experience it myself. You know, not just sit there and be like, all right, I've watched it now. I want more than that. Okay. So I'm going to read a little segment from the first chapter. We're actually listening to the intro track to the book. That's the instrumental one. And I apologize that I don't have more volume, but my radio calmed down on me, so it's not working. But I'm just going to mic it in and turn this up as best I can. And I'll read you guys a little bit from chapter 1. Just to give you a little bit of the setup, the main character, Michael Magnus, is in prison. And he's lost part of his memory, so he doesn't know why he's there. He's been there for about 25 days. They haven't told him anything. And when you come into the book, it's a Wednesday, and he's going to have his first hearing / trial. And he's going to find out finally what they're accusing him for. And so the music is set up to the scene where he's kind of moving around the prison cell, doing things, trying to keep himself occupied. And then one of the security guards comes in, and then he has his first interaction with somebody, and that's the setup, that's the build for the book. So I'm going to start the track here and give you guys a little bit of that. It was a day that would linger in the minds for many years to come. For weeks, a multitude of publications had plastered updates on the upcoming trial. On this particular morning, a Wednesday, the sky had a purple streak of color stretched across the horizon line, making it look like an oil-painted canvas. Centered in the far distance, an orange sun had just begun to peek its way out through the clouds. It was beautiful to admire. Despite its diminutive size and the bars blocking the view, the window that Michael J. Magnus looked out from was large enough to give the illusion of a perfect world. Staring out from across the room, Magnus wondered what scientific principle could be attributed to the wondrous flaunt. He yearned to be on the other side, and did not care that this desire was unrealistic. The hours of his imprisonment had turned to days, and the days seemed like weeks. So I'm going to stop there, and then move a little bit ahead. Suddenly, a bad feeling came over him. Magnus could tell he had just jinxed himself. Whenever you think too hard about something you don't want to happen, or someone you don't want to see, that's precisely when that person shows up or when that something occurs. Just then, the door slammed open with a bang. "Hey, freak!" The voice was immediately familiar to Magnus. "Did you miss me, freako?" Magnus found himself face to face with the worst enemy he had in the DEDC, possibly in his entire life. A wicked smile, similar to that of the Grinch, formed on Denton's face. He received such twisted pleasure whenever he got the chance to bother a prisoner, and it had been quite a while since anyone had been in Section A. He relished every moment of torturing Magnus as much as he could. Magnus, however, did not wish to deal with bad treatment, and so he decided not to get off the bed, or even to respond. "Aw, is the freak sleeping?" Denton harped. "Let me help." Before Magnus could react, Denton took a cup of water he was holding and splashed it onto him. A loud shriek and much laughter followed. "Ha ha! Next time I talk to you, freak, you get the heck up, you hear? And by the way, that's the only way you'll be getting water from now on. What do you think this is, a freaking hotel, he snarled? Don't expect any more damn room service. Denton loved using profanity. Not only did he think it was the best way to get his point across, but he thought it just made him sound tougher. As one might guess, Denton wasn't exactly a charmer, but he still fancied himself a ladies' man. He often bragged to the other security guards about his conquests, clamoring on about how his brutish charm always seemed to get him attention in the local bar. His philosophy was, the bigger a-hole you are, the faster they come running. Unfortunately, in most of the places he frequented, this was true, which only added to Denton's cockiness. In any case, that morning he was extremely ticked off for a number of reasons. For one, he was hungover. And two, he knew that it was the day of Magnus's trial. He was annoyed at the prospect that he might not be able to pick on his favorite pawn. There was an awkward period of silence. Denton and Magnus locked eyes. Denton's breathing was so heavy that even with the door closed, anyone nearby on the other side would have heard him. Magnus didn't want to back down. He didn't want to show fear. This was nothing new. He knew Denton was demented. Denton broke the silence. Don't think that you'll be getting away from me, freak. Just because your little hearing is happening later today doesn't mean we won't be playing anymore. We'll have plenty of good times to come, and I'll be seeing you real soon. So there's a little sample from chapter 1. Pretty good summary there. And that's how the music works. Once you have music for the people always ask me, how do you use the soundtrack, because they're not used to having a soundtrack with a book. And the whole thing is, it's character driven. So based on the title of a track, for instance, Magnus in Lockup #1. Whenever you have something with Magnus, you have the music from that to go with Magnus. So whenever you're reading about him, that's when you listen to that track. There is another track I'm going to read for the main detective, Joe. And so whenever you have a chapter about Joe, that's when you listen to the track for Joe. And so on and so forth. So the soundtrack is very character driven. So once you have the music in mind, it kind of travels with you wherever you're going to have that character. And I designed the book such that as you're reading through, you have a chapter about Magnus, you have a chapter about Joe, you have a chapter about K.M. Lockhart, the lawyer in the book, or whatever, or whatnot. And so each of those people have the music that applies to them, just like in a movie. You know what I mean? And so on. Welcome to the new people. Thank you for stopping in to listen. I just finished reading from chapter 1, and I was just showing people my vision board, which a lot of people in this room already own the book or have heard a lot about it, and so thank you for that. And so again, this is my multimedia, the multimedia experience. I want to build so much with this book. I want people to really have more than just words on a page. I want to kind of steer them. You know, when people read a book, they create their own images, their own ideas of what people look like or what scenes may feel like or sound like, right? And so with the soundtrack, I'm steering them in a certain direction. I mean, they still have the freedom, but when I add photography and I add little goodies like that, then you know, for instance, what Joe's car looks like. Or you have an idea what the bike that the hooded killer is riding around on looks like, you know, and so on, and the hideout over there. And so it kind of adds a more solid element to the whole story, and it guides people to just really experience it in a bigger way. And welcome. So I would like to do, I guess, you know what, since you guys just came in, I'm going to read a little snippet from a later chapter, and it's a chapter with the main detective, Joe Warren, and he has his own theme music. It's one of the bonus tracks that I released later on in the book. And so I'm going to just pull that up. Let's see if I can. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay, it's probably like this one. No. Unfortunately, my radio died on me today, and so I have to kind of make do with the laptop, which is low. But try to find a spot. There we go. I really love being able to have music while I'm reading. I feel like it just changes the whole experience of going to a book reading. Alright, this chapter is called The Call of Duty. Alright. There we go. Many people had crossed the sidewalk in front of the municipal building on Court Street. However, for Christian Warren, it was the first time. He had traveled quite a distance to be there. He took in the scenery for a moment, and was happy to be in a peaceful place. Over the last 2 years, he had been in and out of combat in a multitude of Middle Eastern countries. Compared to that, Chicago seemed to be standing still. Christian stood approximately 6'2", and was a proud man to say the least. As a sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps, he had done and seen many things. At one point, he had even been a Secret Service officer who guarded the current president. With that position, he had traveled the world. However, now here he was at the 7th Precinct. Christian had come to get some things from Joe's office. After his encounter with Dar, not only was Joe hurt physically, but his pride was hurt as well. So as a favor, he asked Christian to go to his office and get some important materials. Joe, back at his apartment, was stewing about the situation. He knew that he was the only one who could save Sharon. Dar was playing a twisted game with him and no one else. When he made his official report, Joe had elected to leave out certain details. He was afraid that someone else might endanger Sharon's life. He didn't mention that Dar wanted him to get information in exchange for Sharon. He wrote in the report that Sharon wasn't present at the location specified, and that Darius Magnus had given instructions that he would be in contact at a later time with full demands. Right after he submitted the report, Joe called Christian and started to formulate a plan to get Sharon back. He assumed Christian would be able to get clearance to certain sensitive information that Joe could never see. It was his hope that with a little help from him, the two of them could uncover the mysterious Mansurian project. So the music, it carries on, and you can read at any pace you want, but it just continues to just give you that feeling, build the suspense, you know? And so, I want to do something a little bit different now. When I'm gonna let this finish out. When I do performances live from the soundtrack, I either grab my guitar, or I grab a microphone and I get up on stage and I do something a little bit more intense. Even though we have a young person here, I think we'll be all right. I already curved, by the way, in that first reading, I curved the language. Denton does curse. It's just that I had to curve it because we have a baby. So.
I was going to say, because she's 22.
Well,
I think the one that's 22 months is the one we were talking about.
So I'm going to put on my little hoodie here, and I'm going to dress up like this guy over here, and give you guys a little taste of what it's like. Actually, maybe I'll do it in home form. I like to change it up. So, here we go. So, in the book, as you're reading about it, in the very beginning, you get a sense that the hooded killer is, you don't really know what he looks like. I did that on purpose. People always said, why didn't you describe like more about it? That's because I wanted you to kind of like picture whatever you would picture a hooded killer as, you know, not necessarily what I would. But here we go, we have this guy here who, he has no real face, you know, his hands are kind of scary looking and so on. Trust me, if you walk into him, it does hurt. If you get close enough and you look at his face, you will see your own face, which is all a part about, you know, murder mystery, suspense. You don't know who it is. It could be yourself or anyone. So, here we go. So since I don't really have the music, I'm going to do a little poem based on the Hooded Killer. And it's also lyrics from the soundtrack. The main track on the soundtrack is called Terror's Gonna Make You Scream. So actually what I'll do is I'll ask for a little audience participation, if that's okay. When I say, because terror's gonna make you scream, can you give me a little scream? You guys can handle that? Just a little, ah! You know, that's good, that's good. Okay, so here we go. I have to get the character, I have to feel like the Hooded Killer, who's also known as Dar. So, in the night, you walk alone. You made the mistake to be on your own. What's that noise that you hear beside you? Feel the fear creep up inside you. Is that a pain in the back of your head? You wish you stayed home instead. Because now your time is up, and the hooded killer is going to make you dead. You tried to run, but that's no plan. You swear that you can feel his hands. Wish that you could wake up from this dream, because the terror is going to make you scream. He's coming up behind you. You trip and you hit the ground. You can't believe that this demon, he didn't even make a sound. He looks you in the eyes, you pull, and you try to slip. But it's too late, because Dar has got you in his grip. You're thinking back now. You can't get back now. You wish that it all was a dream, because the terror is gonna make you scream. There you go. So what I do with the music, it's a lot more intense. I start running around the audience and start really engaging people and freaking them out. I scared a few children. I didn't mean to, but you know, it happens. So, just giving you guys a little sample of that. I'm going to save all the vocal scenes as a surprise for those who, you know, haven't read the book yet, and so on. But I will do one more reading, at least for now, and then maybe take a little break. And one of my favorite chapters, or very favorite points in the book, is actually from chapter 11. And so, there is a little music to go with it. Or actually, you know what, there's an actual scene on the book. So what I'll do instead is I'll play the music low, but I'll read from chapter 11. So give me just a moment here. Flashback to 3:30. After reading the report about the missing bicycle, Sharon got into her car. She couldn't believe that it never crossed their minds the attacker's bike might have been stolen. She left the station and began driving through the busy streets of Chicago. It was a good 25-minute drive down to the warehouse district. Sharon turned on some music and then realized that she wasn't completely sure where the house was or if anyone would even be home to talk to. She radioed into dispatch. They contacted the residents for her and discovered that one member of the family was home. They also provided her with an address to plot in her GPS. When Sharon arrived, she pulled up to a white mobile home with black shutters. It looked as though it had been years since it was painted. She thought to herself it was quaint, although it gave her a weird feeling. The home was surrounded by a small fence, and there was a driveway with a car parked in it. Directly in front of the car was a garage. Sharon parked in the street. As she walked into the house, she noticed some other houses down the road that had been damaged from a bomber. She shook her head and rang the doorbell. Without warning, a large pit bull came running at her. The dog stopped in front of her and snarled aggressively. Sharon pulled out her nightstick in defense, but luckily, the owner called for it to calm down from inside the house. The front door opened, and a small man wearing glasses stood in the doorway. The pit bull quieted down and ran toward the man. Sharon watched the dog's movements and slowly approached them. "I'm sorry for my dog," the man said. "He's my brother's, and is still getting used to being here." Sharon had a particular dislike of dogs, so she simply nodded at the apology while continuing to carefully watch the dog. She spoke to the man. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Alexander Blunt?" "Yes, I am." "You must be the officer they told me about that was coming. They didn't tell me how pretty you'd be, though." Sharon finally broke the stern look on her face and smiled. Alex spoke to her again. "He's really a pushover. His bark is truly worse than his bite. Not to worry, though. I'll leave him outside. Would you like to come in for some coffee?" Sharon agreed and entered the domicile. I'm going to move a little bit ahead and continue to here. Okay, start it again. Okay. Sharon agreed and entered the domicile. They sat at a small table in the kitchen. That's the vocal word. "The reason I'm here is to get another description of the criminal. The thief might be linked to another crime we are investigating. It's a long shot, but we're hoping you could come down to the station and identify him from pictures." Alex handed her a cup of coffee and then took a sip of his own. "Well, officer, it wasn't me that saw him. It was my daughter. In fact, it was her bike he stole." Sharon looked at the report puzzled. the paperwork doesn't mention that. The man looked at Sharon and said, well, ma'am, my daughter was so scared, she didn't want to leave the room. You see, he looked right at her, and she hasn't been the same since. Sharon took a hard gulp, and with a very raspy voice she asked, how is she not the same? Alex stood up and motioned for Sharon to follow him. They walked together toward the back room. He cracked the door and whispered, Susie, are you awake? The little girl of about 12 put her eye right to the crack and said, what do you think? With that, she slammed the door as hard as she could and locked it. He spoke again. Honey, we need to talk to you for a minute. There's a nice police lady here who's here to get your bicycle back. There was silence. The two of them stood there waiting for a response. Go the heck away, she screamed. Leave me alone! Sharon was stunned at the language the child was using. Alex shrugged his shoulders and told Sharon that she had been like this for the past few weeks. Sharon asked if the bike was a small child's bike. Alex explained that it was an adult bike the two of them kind of shared. Sharon was determined to get the testimony from the preteen. This whole situation was starting to seem strange to her. She motioned for Alex to approach her and whispered, Mr. Blunt, I think something's wrong here. Are there any windows next to that room? Alex began to feel a heightened concern. He nodded, and then Sharon whispered, keep her distracted. She then spoke aloud, well, Mr. Blunt, if your daughter refuses to come out, I cannot sit here and wait for her to change her mind. She winked at him and then walked away heavily. Alex began to speak to the door. Susie, the lady is leaving. Can you come out of there? I'm not going to ask again. The door closed, and then he continued. See, the lady from the police station is gone. Susie emerged from the room. As she did, she started crying and ran over to hug her father. He bent down and placed his arms around her. Suddenly, he felt something on his hand and said, oh no. He said, oh no. As he looked down, he saw blood. He was about to scream when he felt something smack his head. The last thing he saw before passing out was a dark figure walking toward the front door. Sharon began her approach toward the back window of the house. She passed by the first window and saw the kitchen. Peering in, she saw nothing, so she continued on her way. The second window was the bathroom. There was also nothing in there. Finally, she came to the girl's bedroom window. As she approached, she noticed something reflecting coming from inside of the room. She looked a bit closer. It was the bicycle. The hairs on Sharon's neck stood on end, and she immediately pulled out her gun. She approached the window, jumping in front of it, yelling, freeze! There was no movement. Then suddenly she felt a strong tingle in the back of her neck. She felt something behind her. She knew that someone or something was directly behind her. A bead of sweat dripped down her brow. Sharon spun as quickly as possible. The gun was knocked from her hand, and she looked into the eyes of the hooded killer. She was paralyzed by fear. Her legs gave way. She fell to the ground and passed out. In her half-conscious state, she felt something move along her back, at which point she passed out completely. The sun shone on Sharon's face, and a cool breeze brushed against her cheek.
So, again, that's one of my favorite chapters. It's probably my favorite chapter to read from because it's the first live encounter, I would say, with the hooded killer that you really feel like, oh my god. Earlier in the book, an officer kind of stumbles upon him with the bike, but we don't know it's the hooded killer at that point. But at this point, we know, and I'm just like, God, is Sharon gonna be okay? You know, and of course you don't know until much later. So that again is just how an idea of how I end the chapters in such a way that you're like, really, really, right there. I need to know what happens. Come on. And so you go to the next chapter, and it's about somebody completely else. You know, you're like, oh, how far do I have to go to read about Sharon again? Oh, you know. And so that's what makes this a very suspenseful read, the kind of read that just makes you want to continue and continue until finally you get all the answers. And in writing the second book, which I'm doing now, I wanted to design it the same way. I wanted to continue that suspenseful feeling. You're going to definitely get some of the characters that survive the book, you know, in the next book. And you're going to definitely be excited to see what's going on because things are going to be even more intense, even more scary. This book, overall, takes place in three main areas. Upstate New York, near Albany. Chicago, as I read a few times. And then also in Missouri, near St. Louis. But the second book, I'm really gearing to have an international feel. So you're going to have things starting to pop up and creep up around the world instead of just in a few small towns that it happens in this book. So a much bigger feeling, much larger scare, much more intensity and so on. And that's that. So
Sorry.
that's okay. No, thank you for. I'll take the applause. Does anyone have any questions? I mean, I know. Some of you guys were at the last reading and had questions for me, but if there's any questions you have for me after hearing about the chapters, I mean, I won't give away, but I will field the questions about how I created it, or maybe some future stuff if you ask. Anybody have any questions out there?
Well, I don't have any questions. I just have a comment that I had said
Sure.
to you earlier, that I am just so impressed with the concept and the work and the creativity for the reader to have this kind of experience, and I just want to commend you for, you know, the creativity of this whole thing. I think it's really wonderful.
Thank you very much. Nancy actually bought the book earlier today, and she didn't actually get to meet me. She bought it for my assistant Aaron and my friend Aaron, who's helping me out at the table, and so I walked over and I met her and so on. And I could, you know what, as grateful as I am for Aaron helping me out and doing, you know, like watching the table for me and all the stuff that's going on, he just really doesn't, he hasn't read it. He owns the book, but he hasn't read it yet, so he doesn't understand the full of the vision. He doesn't understand the vision, and that's why I kind of created this, so that people can visually see what I'm trying to do, and so on. So thank you very much, Nancy, for buying the book, and also, you know, for giving me that positive feedback, because that helps me to keep creating more.
Absolutely.
The next big thing I'm working on, I've got a videographer I'm going to be doing. To the Terror's Gonna Make You Scream, I'm going to be doing a music video, something that really grab attention and just make people like want to go and, you know, read about the book more. You had a question?
Yeah, I was just saying the way you present the book from the reading, it made it so intense, you know, and that's what I get out of a book. But if someone like, usually I don't do novels, but if someone's reading a novel to me, like you did, was so eloquently, so penetrating, I can really feel it inside my head, and it's just makes it much more interesting to just get into it.
Thank you. That's exactly why, you know, that's why I designed it this way. Even myself, I have a hard time stopping. I do so much. It's hard to stop and say, I'm going to read a book right this minute. And so I was like, well, what would help me? What would slow me down or get me into that mode? And the answer was the soundtrack. You know, being able to hear the voices, being able to experience the music and the scenes without anything else, I then want to have more, you know? And that's the whole idea. It makes people want to read, whatever age group you're in. It's gonna bring you in, you know, and create the more suspenseful feeling. I'll let you in a little secret. Like I did a little video on not too long ago where I read the chapter 1 and I put a video on Facebook, and I did it late at night, like about 1 o'clock in the morning, and this guy just kept looking at me. I don't know, I just kept getting, you know, doing that creepy vibe, you know. Even myself, and I wrote the book and I built the guy, you know, but still, like. It does. The music, it creates that feeling. You started getting like, whoa, what's going on, you know? But that's the whole fun of it. That's the whole idea of it. You know, I always kind of dare people online, go read this at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Do it. Put the music on. Tell me how far you get. Because, you know, it does. It's meant to really enhance the story. And I will tell you that I have a very big vision, even bigger than this. My vision is to create maybe 100 books and get them out. I'm very serious. With everything that I do, I like that number 100. I have more than 100 piano compositions that I've written. I'm trying to get there with a guitar, and poetry-wise, I'm going to release a poetry book probably in the next 8 months or so as well. And so I have more than 100 poems that I've done for that. And so I want to have 100 books, and with every book, I want to create this multimedia experience. I want to have music, I want to have photography, I want to have something to just make it larger than life. For the poetry book, I'm going to have live readings of me reading from the poetry book that come with the book. You know, photography that goes along with the subject matter and so on. And so I'm really trying to create a new way to experience the words that I'm trying to portray. And so I thank everyone for for listening to me. I might do a little bit more in a little while, but I want to let you guys have a chance to go out there and experience some of the other performers. Maybe in like an hour or so I'll come back and I'll do some more reading and so on, if you guys want to stick around. It is a beautiful day out there, so again, thank you.
Thank you.